Today's guest has spent his career navigating some of the highest stakes conversations imaginable. Chris Voss is a former FBI hostage negotiator, best-selling author of Never Split the Difference, and one of the world's leading experts on negotiation and communication. In this conversation, we talk about how to build trust quickly, the mistakes most people make in negotiations, and the communication skills that can completely change the outcome of any conversation. From hostage situations to boardroom negotiations, let's get into it.
We're after some fugitives that have been in a shootout with automatic weapons the day before. And we start talking to the door. I start talking to the door. So we're about 6 hours into this thing. And I said, we just saw a curtain move on the outside. I've been telling you for 6 hours we're not leaving. I know you're inside. Without a word being uttered on the inside, door opens up.
All right, so let's jump into this. Very, very excited to have this conversation.
It is my pleasure. And what's my favorite show on TV? 60 Day Hustle!
Yes, come on. I know, you are absolutely amazing on the show. Amazing.
No, that's very kind. I appreciate that.
Yes. All right. So, Chris, you have, I'll actually say you are one of the most intentional communicators and effective communicators I've ever met.
Thank you.
And you also have such a unique background, of course, as a FBI negotiator, hostage negotiator, something that most people have never even experienced or been able to go behind the scenes of what something like that is. Do you feel like your communication skills and your ability to read people is something that is a gift that you were born with, or something that you learned over time?
I would say both. I mean, I think everybody's born with the gift. We're this tremendous blank slate at birth. And then there's a lot of stuff that gets layered in on top of that as we grow, you know, how we're nurtured, the nature and the nurture. But the nature at birth is just like this phenomenal thing. And I think if anything, I'm coachable and I like to learn. Like if I want to get enthused about a day, if I have a task and I think I got to get this task done, it drags me down. But if I think, oh, I'm going to learn while doing this task, then I get excited. So I'm excited by learning. The environment that I grew up in, you know, my father would give me a list of things to do and say, figure out how to get it done. And so it's nature and nurture, but I believe, you know, unless you've got some sort of real functional problem, nearly everybody was born with this. Now, how they were nurtured after that plays a big difference on whether or not you develop it.
That's so interesting. And then at what point did you decide this is where you wanted to dedicate your life as a career?
I was a SWAT guy. I was slated to go to the SWAT team, Kansas City, Missouri Police Department. The Bureau hired me 2 weeks before I was going to get transferred to the SWAT team. I got on the SWAT team, Pittsburgh FBI, went out on some operations, got SWAT trained. I like crisis response because I like that people are forced to make decisions. Comfortable inaction, as John F. Kennedy said, is really what hurts everyone more than anything else. The risks and costs of comfortable inaction, to paraphrase, exceed the cost of any mistake that you might make. So I like crisis response because it forced law enforcement to make a decision. I had recurring knee injuries, and I still wanted to stick in crisis response. And so I thought, well, you know, every time we go out on the SWAT team, the hostage negotiators go along. And the famous Black Swan Voss, there are two sayings in my family my son and I joke about. One is, how hard could it be? And the other is, anything worth doing is worth doing in the dark, because my father always worked until well after sundown.
Oh, wow.
And so, but it was always, how hard could it be? And I thought, how hard could it be to be a hostage negotiator? And it turned out to be much harder and simultaneously much more rewarding, because I was rejected from the negotiation team. And the woman in charge of the team told me to go volunteer on a suicide hotline. And what I learned there about emotional intelligence just blew my mind. And that was at that point that I was hooked. What you could do so quickly with empathy to get people to make decisions and to get out of comfortable inaction, it just blew me away. And it was pretty much at that point that I knew one way or another I was going to pursue it for the rest of my life.
This is amazing. I was actually going to ask you about the suicide hotline experience. You talk about it in your book. And I think it would be fascinating to understand what you learned about the human experience and even go deeper into what you're saying. Like, just what did you learn from going through that?
Well, first of all, how quickly empathy works. What we now refer to as tactical empathy, applied emotional intelligence. When I first got there, they said there's a 20-minute time limit on all calls. And I remember thinking, like, 20 minutes? You kidding me? Like, I'm a Richard Branson fan, and his book Losing My Virginity talks about a crisis hotline he did in England where he was up all night with people. I'm like, how could it be 20 minutes? And they say, no, as a matter of fact, if you're doing it right, it'll take less time than that.
Wow.
And sure enough, the application was true of people that genuinely wanted to collaborate. Even people in crisis, the acceleration was always really, really fast. And then they taught us about manipulative types and what they look like, and the fact that you had to be, they called it carefrontation, but you had to be more confrontational with them, less demonstration of understanding because they would feed on that, suck the life out of you, and much more the application of the skills. So the first thing I learned on the hotline was how insanely effective reading others' emotions and emotional intelligence was. And then really the second thing I learned was it was a perishable skill. Because I assumed that as long as I did my shifts, which were 2 shifts a month, 8 hours every month, I always made all my shifts, that doing it would actually make you better, just doing it, not studying it, just continuing to do it. And I came up for an annual review at the end of the year, and my skills had eroded tremendously.
Interesting. Why is that?
Little bad habits creep in that you don't notice, and sometimes people congratulate you and reward you for communication that really wasn't that good. And the faux congratulations. It's really easy to slip into advice. And someone will say to you, yeah, that advice is really good. And it'll make you feel good. But you don't help somebody by giving them advice. You help them by getting them to think it through themselves. And I learned at the end of the year when a very sweet guy, very nice guy, was a good friend, just slaughtered me in the review.
Oh, wow.
And in a good way. And it woke me up. And I thought, all right, you have to continue to work on the skills while you're using them. Great athletes are great at practice. Michael Jordan loved to practice. Tiger Woods spent more time on the practice courses than he did ever on the tournaments. The tournament was a break from the practice. And I learned that practice is necessary to maintain perishable skills.
That makes a lot of sense. Question for you. So can you take me into one of those calls? You don't have to go into super detail, but just to understand when you are on the call with someone, at what point are they? And then what communication did you find helped people kind of get them off the ledge?
The first thing was you had to spot whether or not they were a manipulative caller right off the bat, because probably about 40% of the people that call in are just there to manipulate. We call them frequent callers.
Is that coming from just like seeking attention?
Well, they're seeking attention, and they're what some people refer to as energy vampires, and they've sucked the life out of everybody in their world. So they call it a suicide hotline because you're supposed to talk to them.
Interesting.
And they're energy vampires, and they're also the same as bad customers, and there are a lot of bad customers. And so they tell on the hotline if they said, "Can I talk to you about something?" Now that's code for I talk uninterrupted and you shut up, and we stay on the phone till I'm done talking, and it's going to be hours. And my response to that would be, I'll talk with you because I'm outlining the parameters of the relationship.
Yeah.
As long as we communicate with each other, I'll talk. But if you're going to talk at me where I need to be silent, I'm not playing, but I'm going to respectfully point out how I do want to interact. And then you're going to make the choice as to whether or not you're going to interact with me or whether we're done.
Okay, so then you have like this 40%, right? About 40% of the people are.
40%.
That's so interesting. So 40% of the people, it's really more manipulative. They fall kind of under that category.
Right.
And then for the others who are really in that position.
Well, if I can hear in their voice, like one guy calls up one night and he goes, "Listen, I need putting a lid on this day. I got to put a lid on this day. I just need your help putting a lid on this day." All right, so I'm hearing that as genuine panic. And so I said, you sound frantic, because he sounded frantic, which is just simply labeling a negative is enormously powerful. It's the best way to deactivate a negative emotion. And his voice immediately came down because I just did what we now refer to as a label. Back then we called it reflective listening. You sound, and then I'm just going to try to put a label on the emotion I'm hearing. And I sensed it as a genuine emotion, and so I called it out. Immediately deactivated. And so the guy goes on to tell me that he's battling the disease of paranoia. And his family's been very involved with him, and they're going to take him to some treatment the next afternoon, and it's going to be a long car ride, and he knows because he's paranoid, he's going to work himself into a fit in the car ride. And so he's working himself into a fit tonight, thinking about how tough that car ride's going to be. And he's outlining to me how hard his family's worked to help him. And I can remember I used a label that somebody once used to me, because I was outlining the importance of my family to this guy. And he said to me, it sounds like your family's close. And I remember in a moment that I never said that directly, but I felt so good. It drew together everything that I expressed. And I remember that I didn't know then, but the neurochemical feeling of oxytocin, of feeling heard. And I remember how good that felt. So I said to this guy, sounds like your family's really close, because they were knocking themselves out for him. Of course they're close. I'm just calling it out. And when I said that, I heard and felt the strength come back into his voice. So now he starts to outline everything he's telling me about how he's been trying to beat the paranoia and how hard he worked at it. Struck me that he was a determined guy. And so I just said, you sound really determined. And he said, yeah, I am. And I'm going to go on that car trip tomorrow and it'll be fine.
Wow.
Thanks. So I didn't give him any advice. What I did was I was basically a sounding board, reflective listening. I labeled what I was hearing. And it took about as long to go through that call as I just described, which was what, 1.5 minutes, 2 minutes max? That's how fast this stuff can work when you start dialing into somebody. And that was a typical call on a hotline.
That's so fascinating. It sounds like with tactical empathy, and you can tell me more, I'm sure you have a framework with all of this that you've learned, but from what you're saying, so much of it sounds like you saw him, he felt heard, he felt seen. Is that essentially kind of the foundation of tactical empathy? Seeing the person?
And it's two parts that you mentioned, but I'm not sure if you realize that you require both. And first of all, I did see him, but he felt seen based on my reaction. And if I don't articulate what I'm seeing, hearing, understanding, guessing even, the other person, and specifically what it is, you can't say I understand. You have to verbalize what you articulate, what you think you understand, so that's when they feel.
Interesting. So you don't say I understand. That can almost be passive. Anyone can say that. You show that you understand by naming it, by saying what you're seeing.
You name it, and you also, what I think scares a lot of people is you leave yourself open to correction. Now, the crazy thing, empathy is about your side of the conversation is vastly different from theirs. So what do I mean by that? Most people, when they get corrected, are embarrassed. The person correcting you is helping you. And so when you throw out a communication where you're open to correction, I love it when somebody corrects me because they've now taken a mentoring position with me, which we're now no longer adversaries. They no longer see me as a threat, as an enemy. You don't mentor a threat or an enemy. So when I'm communicating with you, if I get it wrong and you correct me, I have to realize right now we're on the same side.
Okay, this is gold. This is so good. So many things to dig into. I want to jump into another story that you shared with me and Chris and a few of us on set around an actual hostage negotiation that took place. I don't know if you remember, but this was so fascinating. The one that you weren't sure, you didn't have any insight into whether if the person was even there or not. Do you remember the one I'm talking about?
Oh yeah, probably in a Harlem high-rise.
Yeah, exactly. Would you be up for sharing that story?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd love to. I mean, for a variety of reasons, I figured that by the time we got out in front of this apartment in this Harlem high-rise, I mean, and there was nothing, no cover in the hallway. We were after some fugitives that had been in a shootout with automatic weapons the day before. 27th floor of the high-rise. we got the circus. The circus has come to town, which FBI SWAT, investigators, command. Like, we got a bunch of folks. We sound like an elephant rumbling through the jungle getting to this apartment. And we got to get off the elevator a floor below the apartment, because an open elevator, basically at the end of an empty hall, is a funnel of death. You can't open up where the bad guys are, because if they happen to be out there in the hall, you got nowhere to go. So this makes even more noise. You know, we get off the elevator floor below, and the circus is coming up the stairs. And we get out there, we get lined up, we're in the stack, and I'm convinced that these guys are long gone. If they were there by the time we showed up downstairs to the front entrance, they sure got out of there before we got the doorway blocked off. And we start talking to the door. I start talking to the door. I've got a couple of negotiators in training with me, and I brought the guys in training because you got to get used to talking to what we would refer to as a dry hole. It's good practice to talk when there's nobody inside, because you got to go on for hours without anybody responding back. How do you keep talking? So we talked to this door for 6 solid hours. And how do you talk for 6 hours? If they're inside and they're not coming out, you surmise that they're scared of coming out because they're going to get hurt. And so you say, look, I know you're worried about how you're going to get treated when you come out. And I want you to know, here's how you're going to come out safely and be treated with respect. And then excruciating detail, describe inch by inch what it's going to look when they come out. And the nice thing about this is it takes forever, because I got to kill 6 hours. And then and then what else do you say? You say, well, look, just to prove to you that I'm not going anywhere, let me go through this one more time. So we're about 6 hours into this thing, and the investigative squad is convinced they're inside. And we are trying to get out of there. The SWAT guys are looking at command, come on, they're not here. Command is looking at the investigators like, come on, how much time do we got to waste here? And about 6 hours in, a sniper observer on top of an adjacent building says, I just saw Kurt move inside. Now, we are just like, bang. It's like getting hit by an electric shock. They're really in there.
Yeah.
And so I go back to talking to the door, and I said, look, I told you we're not leaving. I'm using my late night FM DJ voice. And I said, we just saw a curtain move on the outside. I've been telling you for 6 hours we're not leaving. I know you're inside. Here's what it's going to look like when you come out safely. And without a word being uttered on the inside, door opens up, female comes out. Slowly. I said, we're going to see your hands, we're going to see your forearms, we're going to see your elbows, we're going to see your shoulders. You're going to step out slowly, you're going to look to the right. You're going to see a SWAT guy right there. He's not there to hurt you. You're going to walk over to him, going to handcuff you, and he's going to walk you safely around the corner. That's exactly what happens. This girl comes out making every one of those moves.
Whoa.
As soon as her shoulders clear the door from her, she looks over, she sees the SWAT guy. She's not scared. I told her that's what she was going to see. Otherwise, this guy looks like a space alien with all the gear he's got on. Could scare you. She walks over to him, gets cuffed. Second guy comes out, same thing. Don't say a word. Third guy's a little more reluctant to come out. SWAT goes ahead and makes an entry. I go and I talk to these two people afterwards. I go, why, 6 hours, why didn't you say anything? And this girl looks at me and she says, because we wanted to get away. I said, okay, so why'd you come out? She says, well, you told us you weren't leaving. We believed you. And they came out safely.
My gosh. I think, first of all, to your point, the stamina, the 6 hours, but not even knowing, but obviously you were still so effective in that. It's so incredible to hear. So that's so interesting. You're telling them what to do. And there's also transparency about actually getting handcuffed as well. So there's almost like that trust that you're building. And then your signature late night FM, what is it, DJ voice?
Late night FM.
There you go, late night FM DJ voice. Okay, so is that generally a tone of voice that disarms people?
Well, exactly. It's warm, it's downward inflecting. You don't have to have a deep voice to do it. You can downward inflect by simply dropping your chin when you talk. And it's reassuring. The best TV news anchors have mastered that voice because they want to tell you something and you just want to feel that they know what they're talking about. You can trust them. And so it is very disarming. It's soothing. There's neurochemical reactions that are taking place. And then every now and then, if you can find a way to smile, then that gives a person another neurochemical, which then, besides calming them down and disarming them, puts them in a better mood, which makes people more willing to collaborate.
When there's a conflict happening, an argument going on, the person who is able to kind of bring in that demeanor, bring in that more calm voice, typically has a bit more influence, you'd say?
Massively.
Oh, massively, yes.
Massively more influence. It's dictated a little bit by the circumstances. Context typically matters. But even being playful is a superpower. Self-effacing humor is being playful about poking fun at yourself. These are different elements of tactical empathy. When you're calling out negatives, you're being playful, you're poking fun at yourself, you're inviting collaboration. It's very effective along the lines. If you got a dispute with somebody in under any circumstances, if you say, like, I probably seem like the dumbest person you ever ran, that begins to move them into a direction where they feel like they can talk with you.
It makes so much sense. Okay, so going into creating that influential presence, whether if it's conscious or subconscious, when we're meeting someone for the first time, we are already scanning out like their status, their authority, the influence. What are the things that you think instantly create that influential presence?
Say less, try to gain a sense of them, smile, don't rush in. The most influential people in any room are typically the quietest ones. The loudest ones, the masses might say, this person's attention seeking, they're very impactful. And they're not. The people you really want to talk to are sitting back, gaining a sense of feel of everything about a person. I'm sitting in the audience at Georgetown a number of years ago, and there's a CEO in a room who I know personally that is phenomenally successful and dresses down, low key, great entrepreneur. And I'm sitting there talking to him, and there are people in the room that are, hey, how are you? Hey, making sure everybody sees how many people in the room they know. And this guy, John, is sitting there just not making a sound. And I thought, yeah, this of all the people in this room, this is the guy to be talking to. And he's sitting back watching who's attention seeking versus who just has an open and warm presence. And a lot of the attention seeking people, they make a big splash in a room, but the really important people are not coming near them because they've sat back and gained assess. So when you walk into a room, look around to see who's soaking in the room. A great opening line is, hi. Because they're expecting, the car salesperson to just hit him with this deluge.
Yeah.
And those people are very difficult to deal with over the long term. They have poor implementation. They forget what they agreed to do frequently.
So question for you. So let's say for a bubbly personality that naturally is very warm and outgoing and out there stepping into the room, should that person, if it's a first impression, even if it doesn't feel natural at first for them, but to actually be the person that just sits and observes, or should they step in to the room the way they typically do?
If you're naturally outgoing, you want to interact with people as opposed to at people. Mm-hmm. Like you can step into a room with great presence if you're interested and curious in people, and if you're celebrating being there with them, and you've got an infectious attitude because it's all very genuine. I know that you were genuinely interested in people.
Yeah.
And
oh, I wasn't asking for a friend.
You weren't asking for a friend. You got this great sense of style.
Thank you.
And you're very warm, and you're very interactive, and you're very supportive. I mean, one of the reasons why you guys are doing 60-Day Hustle is you're trying to help people live better lives.
Yeah, totally.
It's clearly the intention and the purpose of everything that you guys are doing. And you're trying to help people believe in themselves and grow as human beings, and to know that there are those out there that can support them and develop and grow. That comes across in everything that you say and do.
Oh, well, I appreciate that. Okay, some tactical things here. I have a few questions for you.
It works for me.
When you are in a negotiation, let's say in a deal and the person on the other side goes quiet, what's the best way to continue to follow up or re-engage that person without losing leverage and with maintaining your authority at the same time?
Yeah, well, first, the idea really is to let go of the concepts of leverage and authority and think about relationship building and influence.
I love that. That's so much more human.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, everybody wants to deal with a human. So if they've gone quiet, something has happened so that either they're overwhelmed by the circumstances or communicating with you is just not doing them any good. If communicating with you was moving the ball forward in their head, they'd still be communicating with you. Mm-hmm. So you might start with a one-line text. Seems like things are really overwhelming right now. So it seems like you're overwhelmed at the time, brings you back to top of mind in a very gentle way.
It's so interesting because it feels counterintuitive for me to name an emotion that sounds negative because I feel like I am like projecting that on them but to your point, you're naming it and you can be open to being corrected, but you're opening up the conversation and then you're creating that opportunity for that mentorship, even in that place that you were talking about where now it's, we're having a conversation, you're open to that correction. So naming it opens that up.
Yeah, and you're making an observation based on data you're being given.
Yeah, exactly.
Like it wasn't like you started out first contact with someone and say, seems like you're really overwhelmed right now. You don't have any evidence to back that up. So that would be projecting something in there that isn't there yet. But you've got enough interaction now, you can start making educated guesses.
Makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. Okay, let's talk about you're having a first conversation with someone who is very guarded, tends to naturally be very guarded. What is the best way to build trust quickly? And I'll just say, for myself, I have so many different conversations and I have had conversations in the past where someone will not turn their camera on Zoom, for example, and you're like, oh my gosh, but where's the connection, Right. So I'm curious for people who tend to be much more guarded, what's the best way to build that trust and connection quickly?
Well, you're kind of talking about two different things
Sure.
at the same time. So the first one, let's say they're guarded. You're meeting them in person, probably. What are they saying to themselves if they're guarded? I hope you don't waste my time. You can be proactive in calling these things out. We got a list. We call it an accusations audit. If you've got enough context, and if you know they're guarded, that gives you context. What's causing them to be guarded? They've been smooth talked and hustled, and people have wasted their time.
Yeah.
And on our list of things, we'll say first of all, I'm grateful for your time and all. I'm lucky to have it. Because if they're guarded and they're busy inside, they're saying to themselves, "You're lucky to be talking to me at all." So say that. I'm grateful for the time. I'm lucky to have any of your time. At some point in time, you're probably going to wonder whether or not I'm wasting your time. You're going to ask yourself, why are you taking this meeting? Now suddenly you seem like a mind reader. Mm-hmm. You get out in front of that. A very guarded, busy executive is used to somebody pitching at them endlessly and not listening to them or asking them questions and not actually listening to the answers. What's the biggest challenge you face? And no matter what they say, you're coming with your value proposition, which means you didn't listen to how they answered it. They've been not listened to a lot, and they're sick of it. So you got to show that you're going to pay attention, and you can show that you paid attention walking in by doing what we call a cold read of the situation and calling it out. Now, if they correct you, you're embarrassed, but you just changed the whole relationship because now they're mentoring you.
Yeah.
And they're open. A great mentor-mentee relationship is when the mentee actually listens to the mentor. And so they'll be like, no. I got a lot on my mind. Cool. You just got a great response. They're talking with you. Take emotionally intelligent, educated guesses and lead with that. And then if you've got a read that backs it up, now you're different than anybody else. Because all the other people came in, I got a pitch. I got my elevator pitch. I got my value proposition.
Right. That makes so much sense. I love that so much. I think one of the biggest things I'm taking away from all of this is being open to being corrected and not being rigid in that area, and also naming things, name the emotion. It almost like creates this, it drops the guard a bit. People feel seen in that way. And it's okay if you were wrong. It flips the dynamic of the relationship. I love that.
Yeah.
What do you see in negotiations that people consistently get wrong, or the most common mistakes in negotiation?
Well, there's three kinds of negotiations: the deals you should make, the deals you shouldn't make, and the deals that you will never make. By the time you have an interaction with someone, their mind is anywhere from 50 to 70% made up already. And then that begins to put you in the different categories. What are the deals you shouldn't make? Someone who's very difficult to deal with, because they're always going to be difficult to deal with.
Totally.
Which means implementation is always going to be a pain in the neck. Which means there's going to be a lot of mistakes, a lot of errors, and it's going to take longer to get the deal done than it should. A friend of mine, Joe Polish, likes to call these people halves: hard, annoying, lame, and frustrating. Now, we ran our own internal data to distinguish the halves from the elves: easy, lucrative, and fun. And every time we made a deal with a half, it took us anywhere from 2 to 5 times the amount of time to negotiate and execute the deal, which means you just took at least a 50% cut in pay for that person. Now, the only reason for taking a 50% cut in pay might be if it's a great client and you're going to do business for 20 years. But if it was a rocky, rough, difficult negotiation and implementation, they're not going to repeat because the two sides both got sick of each other. So you just took a 50% cut in pay with somebody you're never going to want to do business again because they sucked the life out of you and it was blood money. So finding those people out early saves you, makes you more profitable because you didn't waste all that time.
Makes sense.
So then we refer to it as the Oprah rule: the last impression is the lasting impression. We're going to end this interaction as soon as we possibly can, respectfully, because I always want to leave a great last impression because it's a lasting impression. And I may say something, and I have said this to potential clients that were pumping us for information. When you're ready to make mutual commitments, we'll be more than happy to be the negotiation provider where you look back on 20 years of business with us and talk about how much more money you made because you worked with us.
So
But
good.
until then, I wish you the best. Most business people think you got a fair shot at every deal. And if you're a good person, you're going to project your values. I would never play anybody else. So therefore, I can't presume that they're going to play me. And they don't always have your values. And
Totally.
you're not demeaning anyone for recognizing who they are and that it's not a match made in heaven.
Going back to the halves, and this is so interesting. So my husband, who you know well, Chris, and I, we run the company together, and we are a great balance because I am like very much an optimist and I'm always seeing the best in people. And Chris, I would say he has some optimists in him for sure, but he tends to be like, he sees it, he calls it, he's done. He's like, oh, I spotted that. That's it. This is not the right person to be in business with. Where I will see that sometimes, and I want to see the best in the person. And so on the half side, what maybe Chris quickly will see as a red flag, I'll see as like a yellow flag. And I want to explore to make sure I'm making the wrong decision about like dropping that person. So how can you create a clear conversation with someone where you're seeing kind of a bit of a consistent pattern with conflict and things that can be an issue ongoing, where you can kind of just very clearly, black and white, understand a decision, like a decision point on whether if we should do business with this person or not?
Well, first of all, start looking at the yellow flags and then see if they accumulate. And then start to pick out, well, it was really a red flag, but I was giving him the benefit of the doubt, and I was hoping it was a yellow flag. And then the real issue is, how do you finish? No matter who the other person is on the other side, whether they shouldn't, or never, I always want to leave somebody willing to deal with me again. And I'm completely focused on a last impression, which indicates that I'd love to do business with you. Kind of here are the parameters. If we don't make a deal with somebody, if we have complete loggerhead and we can't get it across, I will say, here's what a great deal looks like to me. I don't walk away from somebody else. I want them to consciously know what a great 20-year deal would look like, and I want them to turn me down. I never want to leave you in a position where you could say, if you'd only told me, I'd have done that. So I want to be collaborative from the beginning, but as soon as the yellow flags start to accumulate, if I get 3 yellow flags, now I'm focused on a respectful, not an abrupt, but a respectful, concise ending. And one of the reasons why we refer to this as the Oprah rule, I was talking to one of her executives one time, and she said, oh yeah, without question. We always want to make people feel cared for and respected. And when Oprah disagrees with you, on a number of occasions I've been told that she said, basically, we have a disagreement. I respect the direction that you want to go, but I want you to know that no matter what happens, I will always love you, and I will always support you, and I will always be on your side. And then you're free to go different directions. So a lot of it has to do with how abrupt you are at the ending. And I know that I'm going to leave you with a positive last impression, even if we were completely different and not meant for each other at all. When you break a relationship, most people break relationships with name calling and screaming and threats and how dare you. If you can envision breaking it with respect and even care and love for them as a human being, but you still cut it off, then it's easier for you to cut it off.
It is so fascinating to hear your point of view, just the experience that you've had, the type of communication that you've had, and the fact that you're able to translate it into business is so powerful. So I appreciate this conversation so much. It's been so insightful and enlightening for me, and I'm sure for so many people as this gets out there, and it's special. It's so special.
It was fun. Yeah, it really was. Thank you for allowing me to be involved at all.